So I'd like to start by just talking about how you felt in your initial diagnosis. You described in your book that your mind raced with images, caricatures of what I thought bipolar disorder looked like, monstrous humans with terrible tempers fluctuating between hot and cold throughout the day. And I'm just wondering, what has helped you to overcome your own misconceptions and prejudices about mental illness?
I'll never forget, just after my diagnosis, I was, or the day of, I was given a kind of a support sheet with some support groups and essential reading, recommended books and things, and I attended a bipolar disorder support group at the Mood Disorders Association of Ontario. And I had no idea what to expect. I didn't know anything about my condition yet. I showed up, and when I entered that room, and I guess I was running a little late, so everyone else was already there, I saw a representation of every possible kind of human in the world. I saw young people, old people, all races, all sizes, shapes, genders, and I thought, holy shit, this is really common, and I was at home.
So one of the things you've already mentioned a little bit is about some of the societal expectations that have made it hard for you at first to accept your diagnosis. Describing in our go society, busyness has become a badge of honor. It gives us a sense of worth and provides proof that we are contributing, hardworking members of society. This philosophy fits right in with the symptoms that I experienced during manic episodes and helped reinforce how creative, accomplished, important, and effective I thought I was. It can be really scary when certain societal or personal or familial expectations seem to enable and encourage unhealthy behavior. Can you give an example of a time when you felt as though you were almost being validated for behavior that was in hindsight unhealthy?
Yeah. I grew up in a household where I'd say a lot of my family members were kind of type A workaholics, teachers, lawyers, doctors, and that, what can I say? If there was ever a time when I would rest or take a break or need a morning off, or I was exhausted, it was seen as not productive, and the sort of overarching word was, it meant you were lazy and you weren't contributing and you weren't working hard enough, and I was never enough, and I never worked hard enough. And I remember when I won my first orchestra job as principal cellist of the Sudbury Symphony. Now, many of you probably think, oh, you must have lived in Sudbury for a time. Oh no, I commuted via Greyhound bus to Sudbury from Toronto every week and came home on a red eye on Wednesdays through the night, so that I wouldn't miss a day of teaching or freelancing in Toronto. And I remember rolling off that Greyhound bus absolutely wrecked and kind of being proud of myself, like, yeah, you've made it, you're a working musician, yeah, your family's gonna think you're awesome now. And I made myself physically ill. Aside from underlying bipolar symptoms, from that job, which I loved dearly, it was a wonderful community, wonderful orchestra, I developed chronic gastric reflux. And I talk inside mine about the gut-brain and the microbiome, and which we know so much more about now, the relation to stress and mental health conditions. And that's exactly what was happening for me. I had to take medication for chronic reflux, and I thought, like, yeah, this is what it means to be successful. Is to, maybe I need to suffer a little bit more. What could we add to this? And of course I made a million changes, and my life doesn't reflect that. And I'm very busy, but I have a very different pace that I take now, and I talk a lot about that in the second part of Sound Mind.
Yeah, it's very easy when society is trying to encourage you to do the very thing that you don't need to do, whether it's overworking or using up all your time or trying to prove how valid what you're doing is, especially when you freelance.
Yeah.
And which is a different kind of work that, and in an artistic discipline, that you're feeling like, oh, well, I'm trying to be a hardworking artist. I don't want to kind of perpetuate that myth that I'm just, not doing all the work I can.
There was also a wrong thinking that I had absorbed in my upbringing, was that if I chose to be an artist, which was, black sheep of the family, that must mean that I just love my work, and therefore it's not work, which is wrong. It is work. It's very hard work. It's 24/7 work. I heard a great description of it. It is a lifestyle career that you have. It's not a job that you choose and you go to. It is a lifestyle that you've embraced and that you live, and that is your work. So I used to have the wrong idea that I must not actually be working, because this is so much fun. I love teaching, I love playing, I'm doing these gigs, recording session, all this is a blast, and that it wasn't actually work. And I'm working hard to change that now. And I'm so over busyness. How many people know someone who every time you say, how are you doing? How have you been in the last little while? It's like, oh my God, things are insane. I'm so busy, and we all are, but I'm done with that meaning that you're doing well, and it doesn't mean you can be really productive, successful, happy, and balanced without being insanely busy.
You mentioned another thing that I find really interesting, and this is another one of those kind of life balance aspects around technology and the relationship you've had to foster with technology, as a freelance musician, and also with regard to wanting to be a social creature and trying to be a part of all the different communities that you've been a part of. You mentioned that provided that we develop and maintain appropriate boundaries, the electronic world has advantages for those with a mood disorder. We just need to make sure that electronic communication serves us and not vice versa. And we need to sort of safeguard our mental health and stay centered. What are some ways in which electronics, and by extension, I guess the internet, have helped you to live better with a bipolar disorder?
In terms of living better, I mean, I've through some social media, I've connected with other speakers and authors who have bipolar disorder, and that's led me to have some interviews on a couple of podcasts, the Psych Central podcast and the Listen In podcast. So connecting and reaching a mental health community via the internet, via social media, I think is great. And for people who have a condition like mine, oh my gosh, there's a Facebook group for everything. There could, not just groups for people with bipolar disorder or depression, anxiety, schizophrenia. There's, the LGBT bipolar disorder group. There's the Christian bipolar disorder group. There's, there's a niche for everyone, and I think that's a really great thing in terms of developing community and finding peers.
Awesome. So our final question is about the point that you make in the book, that friends and family listened to you, but they knew very little about what you were going through, and that sometimes you didn't always find them very helpful and were occasionally embarrassed to have confided in them. Do you have recommendations for family and friends, and I guess colleagues as well, who are supporting a loved one with a mood disorder?
I think step one, and something that my family members did do that I really have wonderful family support. Of course, there are few funny moments. I'll tell you one in a second when I was first diagnosed. But arming yourself with information, picking up a few books, chatting with people in support groups for friends and family, trying to really understand the condition and how your loved one might be experiencing it as much as you can. I really think that getting that information is powerful, and it shows your loved one that you're invested in them and you're their teammate. And my spouse considers himself my teammate, and that it's our condition that we deal with together. I'm the luckiest person in the world to be able to say that I have a family member like that. I'll tell you my funny little story. When I told my mom when I was first diagnosed, I was frightened beyond belief, and I needed my mom. Called my mom, and I feel like I really have an answer to my questions about my mental health and my depressions in my teens, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And my husband's name is Graham. She said, "What about Graham? He just married you." My mom's amazing. I love her. But sometimes when you're faced with new information, things just come out. And I still have a chuckle over that one. Anyway, my mom's incredible, but that's kind of one of my favorite whoops moments.
Very sensitive of her to think of Graham in a moment like that. That's great.